You want to talk to us?
By being invited.
You're invited.
Did council get a letter that I had drafted?
Yes.
I think that letter basically outlines the position that we have. There's another letter that was submitted by Susie Persapio. Has that also been received? I
Yes.
think if you've read both those letters to get a sense of where we are at this point, I guess moving forward, we don't have any real objection to deleting the sister city from I guess, the city ordinance at this point. However, there are some issues. One of the issues would be with the money that comes from the Arts and Crafts Fair that's been raised, as both the letters indicate, we're requesting that be donated to the sister city organization. Basically, what we're going to be doing is reforming as a private organization. There's been some talk, Susie Persapio has been speaking with some individuals. I've personally not been involved in that portion of it, but she has, so that aspect of it is moving forward, and it looks promising at this point. So one is she becomes with funding, and our position would be that the money from the Arts and Crafts Fair, the $3,000 is yearly donated for this event. We'd be requesting that for this one time, because we're hosting the French in 2015, that be directed to that cause. Simply because we were told approximately a year ago that we couldn't fundraise. We haven't been fundraising. We have less money now than we would have to raise to host the French. They're going to be here in less than 12 months. So basically, our position would be we're just requesting that the city honor its previous commitment and adopt policy 15 and use that towards funding the French when they visit here in 2015.
Mike, in your letter does also state that there will be plenty of public events with the intent that the council would deem that it's for the public good, so.
Correct, and did council also receive, there's basically an agenda that some individual had prepared as far as a draft agenda for what type of events that would be held in 2015 when the French come here, tying those to public purposes. So is that been received?
I don't think so.
We haven't received it.
Wendy was supposed to photocopy it and give it to you today, because I didn't get it in time for your packet.
That's accepting.
I haven't received it, I haven't seen it.
In any case, there's been some work as far as getting the draft agenda. If that isn't present here today, that can be present very shortly. In that, there's been some work to try to get what type of activities and outline an agenda that will be held when they come here in 2015. And I think just in speaking, I've only been a part of the committee a couple of years. I wasn't any part of the committee that planned the last time the French came here. But I think the emphasis will be on a lot more local events that are open to the community, that incorporate anyone who wants to come to the community. So essentially, these funds would be generated back into the community, as I indicated in my letter, back into museums, back into restaurants, back into cultural events. So what we want to do is really have a Little Falls centered trip when they come here in 2015 with an agenda that's primarily based around this community, so that the funds are going directly back into the community.
Well, and basically the protocol is when we visited France, basically we invited them then to come back to Little Falls, which has been a process for the last 27 years. Such as when France comes here, they then turn around and invite us to go back there. So the process, because at that time when the committee went to France, there was none of this stuff was going on, and so they did what they usually do. They invited them to come to Little Falls. So the invite has already been set forth as they've done for the last 27 years. Talking with the committee and the Sister City Committee met a couple weeks ago, and we had a large turnout of citizens from Little Falls that really have an interest on keeping this committee going and working on the French visit, listening to a lot of the options that they were giving on what they can do. I think a lot more of spending time here with their host family, potentially doing more lawn activities and those types of things, but then utilizing the revenue, the funds that come in to do community activities where then the community can be involved and make it more of a cultural exchange and really focus on that, which I believe they had in the past, but I think that their emphasis this time is going to be that more so.
I believe that's a correct recitation of what we had discussed at our last meeting, and that accurately reflects where we are at this point.
Mike, we also have in this letter from Susie that the Initiative Foundation will be helping with taking care of your financial.
She started looking into that aspect of it. I don't think she's able to be present here today, but she has looked into that aspect of it, and already it sounds promising that would be an avenue that we can explore as far as getting the ability to fundraise as far as that's concerned. So that, yeah, from what I've heard from her, that does look like it's promising, and as we move forward here today with the way it seems we're going to be moving forward, we'll have a lot more time to donate to making sure that's a reality.
I've worked with them many times in the past, and I'm current committee right now, and I'm the city committee, and they are excellent in helping you with your finances and also other areas too. And they just received a $200,000 grant from somebody too, so they know what they're doing.
I believe the Initiative Foundation has expressed an interest if that is what the committee so desires.
I definitely think that's the direction we're heading. If we get some more clarity on that here today, then everyone involved can move forward in that.
So for, what you're looking from us is the $3,000 of what we get from the arts and crafts part of that fee.
I think how we're moving forward here, I anticipate will be deleted as a city committee. We'll then be able to move forward as a community committee based, outside of city council. But then there is the issue of hosting the French in 2015. So that, at this point, we haven't fundraised for quite some time. That's going to be necessary if we're going to put on we're going to host the French and realistically do that with any amount of, hospitality. When you consider that there's 20 to 25 French coming here, when we go to places, if we need transportation, if we need, entry into museum fees, things like that, it adds up pretty quick. So that if we want the French to come here in 2015 as they're scheduled to come, we're just asking for council to honor the previous commitment for this time. And then once the 2015 trip has been completed, then it will be on a different funding track we'll have on our own.
So Lori, could you tell me what the balance is within the Sister City funds? There has been some that has been put in from last year and the year before from the Arts and Crafts Fair.
Correct.
So is it like 6,000, 9,000?
I didn't honestly
Okay.
take a look, but I'm gonna guess it's right in there somewhere.
Okay, so is that the funds that you're talking about, Mike, that the committee is looking at, that they can utilize the money that is within that account? And then you're saying that after this, then they wouldn't be looking for any more help from the city as far as the committee?
My understanding is after that point that it would be basically a self-sustaining organization. We would be able to do our own fundraising and receive funds from other sources. And under policy 15, as it's applied up to this point, we're just requesting that continue to be, the funds from that policy continue to be directed towards basically the sister city, and the trip is to what they were meant to be, what they've been held for up to this point. We're just requesting the city council continue with that.
Okay, so then utilize the 9,000 that's in the account and then continue to receive 3,000 every year from the Arts and
No,
Crafts?
just the one time.
One time.
Oh, okay.
Mr. President, I'm a little bit concerned because, can we hear from our city attorney? Because I want to know what you said last time on this issue in regards to finances.
Well, right, the city cannot donate to that separate entity. So I think that was the crux of it before, was the problem is, if they're going to form a separate entity so that they can fundraise, then we cannot donate to that entity. So if you're looking at continuing with this, then you're gonna have your sister city committee and then the separate fundraising committee, and the sister city committee has to spend those funds directly for a valid public purpose. That's another assessment that needs to be made, is are the funds that are being spent, is that a legitimate public purpose? That's something, without knowing now what they're going to do in the future, obviously I can't give you an opinion on whether would pass muster or not. And even at that, that's a muddy issue like we talked about before. There's not a lot of clear answers on what's okay and what's not okay. I know Dan did send something to the auditor to try and get more information on that, and I think that got referred now to a second person, so we don't have an answer back from the auditor. But from the league and everyone else, it's a muddy issue as far as saying this expenditure is okay, this isn't. You can declare a public purpose, but if you aren't doing that, then that's a problem. Just like if I'm standing on the 9th fairway at the country club with a 5-iron in my hand, golf ball at my feet, but I write on a note, I'm playing baseball, and I tell you I'm playing baseball, are you gonna say I'm playing baseball because I wrote it? You aren't. You're gonna say, no, you're playing golf. We don't care what you wrote. So that's the whole public purpose thing. If you're saying something's a public purpose, but when the public looks at it and those expenditures don't mesh, that's where you would run into a problem. Now, if they're, from what they're talking about, that sounds like something that's certainly viable and that would possibly pass muster. I have no idea what that is. I haven't seen anything, so I can't comment on that. But that's at least what you need to look at when you're analyzing that and how it needs to work.
So basically, the committee has to stay functional in order for it to receive that money as a city committee.
They would have to spend that themselves on what they have defined to be a public purpose. They cannot give it to that fundraising entity. Either that fundraising entity needs to spend it directly then on the French, or the fundraising entity gives it to us. And then they can say, well, we want it spent on X, Y, Z, then, that's a donated fund, and.
Kind of like the extravaganza.
Right, so. If they become their own entity, we cannot give them money.
So if the council gets rid of the committee tonight, no money.
Right, I mean, otherwise, unless the council's just gonna handle that as a council itself and not have a committee, unless they're just gonna do that, as a council and say, we're gonna spend money X, Y, Z. We've always done that through a committee, of course. But you can't give them money. Right, yep.
So these A and B, they kind of go hand in hand. The ordinance was to delete the sister city committee. So we put it on until we get what they're gonna,
That's up to you, that's not a.
but would that be the way to go, to wait until we get their agenda?
It's completely up to you. You could say, you could certainly say, we don't care, we're just done with this. I mean, you could say that. That's not a legal decision, that's a council decision. Or you can say, from what they're talking about, it sounds like significant changes are being made and they're trying to gear this more towards a clear public benefit, public purpose, and we want to look at that before we make a decision. That's your other option, and certainly if they're indicating that and the council wants to continue to entertain this and bat it around, then that would be certainly another viable option for you, sure.
Well, and I gotta believe that the committee is going to work specifically to make this a community function. They're not gonna come to the council with a goofy plan and not make it work. I mean, they're gonna really work at making this, something that we need to be looking for. And so I guess what I could say is that, we should just go ahead, let the committee keep going, get this trip done with in 2015 when they're coming here, so that you guys at least know that what you should be working towards. I mean, you keep waiting and waiting and waiting, and we're not getting anything done. And so I would like to just see us leave it as it is for now, and just let the group move forward, bring that agenda to the council that we can see it. And at that point, if the council says, well, no, this is absolutely ridiculous, we're not doing it, I gotta believe the group would say, well, okay, no, then we'll go back and to the drawing board and we'll redo it. I mean, if you don't feel that this is what you're looking for. But they need some kind of answer here. I mean, they keep coming back, and we've gotta give them an answer. I mean, a couple weeks ago, we said yes, and then all of a sudden, last time we met, we said no. And, I would like to just see us make a decision here so that they can move forward. I mean, it's kind of embarrassing to tell the French, well, we invited you, but we've changed our minds. I just feel we can't do that.
Mr. President, I make a motion to table so that this group can, I'm a little disappointed, Mike, that agenda wasn't sent, and even your letter, I didn't get a chance to read it until just now.
Well, we didn't get it till the 3rd, isn't stamped on here, which would have been.
Right, but I think you would be a little, next time more prepared, so we can have the documents beforehand to make a good choice for everyone. But I make a motion to table.
The Sister City Committee here, or the whole thing here?
Well, I think we need to really know if it's a public purpose or not, or how you're gonna address that, and so the whole community can know that they can be part of that. And have our attorney look at the agenda, and the city attorney, and then we can make a knowledgeable decision.
So we're gonna delay their fundraising purposes again?
Well, I think they should be fundraising any, well, I don't
Well, we
know.
can't.
I don't know that.
So, isn't there, if we delete the Sister City Committee, if they come forward with a public purpose, can't we give them the money to do a public purpose?
No,
The city can't do it themselves to do the French.
you can spend your money on a valid public purpose, but you cannot donate that money.
We give it to them to go do whatever they
No,
want.
you
But
cannot.
if the city wants to
Have a pin roast. or something.
provide a thing for the French and a whole community evening or whatever at the park with the French, with the residents of Little Falls,
If you can indicate, if that is a valid public purpose, you can spend your money on it. I mean, the
Well, if they're-
taxpayer money on it.
right, if they're gonna come forward, we're gonna give them the money, it's gonna be so if they come forward with this, that they wanna do it, and it's a public purpose, why wouldn't it be a public purpose for the council to do it?
They don't need to worry about it being a public purpose, because they're a private group. The
But if we
council
give them the $9
does.
grand, they gotta have a public purpose for that,
We
correct?
can't give them the $9,000. We have to spend the $9,000. We have to say, the city of Little Falls is expressing a certain public purpose, and we're gonna expend funds to serve that public purpose. So that's where you're gonna have, again, two different entities.
Well, the Sister City Committee, they're gonna have to do the same thing in order to use the money, because
Yes.
so
Yes.
if it comes from us or if it comes from the Sister City, either way, it's gonna have to be a public purpose to get the $9 grand.
Well, the
If
difference,
they're-
Spend the $9,000.
Right.
Yes.
so who's gonna plan these events? And, I mean, because, at this point, wouldn't it just be easier and better to have the sister city keep functioning under the headship of, with the city as their head versus them going away and then we're gonna start doing this stuff? Because we can't just give it to the new group, we can't give it to the nonprofit. Doesn't it just make more sense, and a lot easier just to have the committee just keep doing it?
From a planning purpose, certainly, that's normally why you have committees, so
Right.
the council isn't.
Instead of having
turning into
staff and council
planners
doing
or
that.
whatever the case may be, certainly that's
That's
why you
taken
normally
up.
form a committee.
The only problem is they won't be able to fundraise.
No, but
The
if they just,
sister city committee won't be able to fundraise.
Not
If
the other
they
group.
form their own separate group, again, that group can fundraise and either decide, well, okay, we're gonna do XYZ for the French, and the sister city's gonna do, ABC for the French. You can do it they could do it that way. Or they fundraise, they dump the money to the sister city, and then the sister city committee pays it out then. Because now you've got donated money where they're indicating, okay, we're donating this money for whatever the case may be, a tubing ride down the Mississippi or whatever. We're donating it for that. Okay, well then, now that's donated money. But the taxpayer money that the sister city is spending, that, you need to have your identified public purpose. So whatever makes sense to do, that's gonna be a matter, that's not a legal issue. That's what makes the most sense, and how many cooks in the kitchen is too many, and, that'll have to be up to them, but.
Just amazing how much time we're wasting on $9 grand, on how we're gonna give $9 grand taxpayer dollars away for somebody else to use.
When in essence, from what I understand, it was pulled aside for that purpose,
Exactly, that's why we.
dedicated for that, and I thought there was some gray area that we were concerned about if we did it the way with a fundraising committee and the sister city committee. They had to make sure that they didn't work together, they weren't on.
Right, you have to have the separate committees. Exactly, if they're commingled, now you've got basically a city entity fundraising. So that's why it's a muddy area, and.
I agree with Jeremy, I wish we could find a way to delete it, get them the money, whether it says we're going to be putting on the event or whatever, I wish we could find a way to do that. I think it'd be much cleaner and we won't have to worry about the overlap. They could start fundraising right away. but I think it's only fair if that money was dedicated for that purpose, that we should stick to our word and go with that. One way or the other. And it seems to get messier every time we discuss it. And I apologize to the committee for that, because our intention isn't to make it harder for you. Our intention has been to make it easier for you. It doesn't look like it.
Mr. President, I'd like an opportunity to speak, please.
We got to move on with this ordinance.
Well, you allowed this gentleman to speak. Last year, you didn't allow Teresa Scorsese to speak.
Excuse me, but Mike Schneider was he is right here on the agenda.
I was on the agenda last time.
You know
Yes,
what?
correct. She
Please
was
sit
on
down,
the
Lovell.
agenda
We're
last
trying
time.
to get this issue taken care of so we can move on. You have not been invited to stand up. Please sit down. Can we please move on?
Well, you made an exception last time for him to speak.
There is a motion on the floor. I would call that we.
I would just like to state that this was never a public purpose. This whole committee has been set up to entertain the French.
Would you please sit down?
It's a French perks package, however you look at it. There is no public
No,
purpose.
that motion-
Teresa and I even worked with the
The
committee.
motion was to table it, right? Correct, Brian?
To table.
Motion to table.
Second.
And just said table it.
That ends discussion, I believe,
Yes.
once we go to table.
I just want to state that Teresa and I did come to the committee and ask
Ordinance
to
61.
help develop a public purpose, and we're denied that.
To table, there's no discussion.
Mr. President, can I clarify my motion?
Sure.
It was to table and to make sure that the group comes forward with that agenda so our city attorney can look at that.
Right.
Right. Okay, we got a motion by Alderman Carter, second by Leanne, or Councilwoman Doucette.
Actually,
To table.
I think Kathy seconded the motion right away when it was made,
Oh,
and that
okay.
early on, so.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. So then ordinance 61, 6 series, amend city code chapter 2, delete sister city committee.
That's what we
That's
just
what we're
voted
doing.
on.
That was, that's what I said, are we working them
Yeah.
together? Okay. Ordinance 64, 6 series, amend city code chapter 7, section 7.09, diseased trees. We introduced this at 9/15/14. What's the wish of the council?
Um, I'll move.
Sorry.
Second. Got a motion by Alderman Crowder, second by Councilman Hampler for ordinance number 64, diseased trees. Any discussion?
I need discussion on this. Can you explain it to everyone in Greg about what the changes are? Or wait?
This is kind of running in line with what we did with the lawn mowing and the snow plowing to clarify and to give people an appeal right, where if we go and mark a tree and we say it's diseased and they're saying, baloney, it's not diseased, it just was a dry year and it'll come back the next year, that they have the ability to come in and appeal that before we go saw down their tree or make them saw down their tree. So we're just trying to get that cleaned up to be consistent with all those areas where we're gonna go in and do something, to give them a right to come in and challenge that before we go do it and send them a bill.
So that wasn't an option before.
We did not have, we had the notice provisions in, we did not have the hearing process. That's the big change, is the hearing process.
Because personally, for instance, we have some very old trees that we care very much for, and they get old and straggly looking, and they're not diseased. But we often have felt a little threatened, like they were going to be marked.
Yep.
So we would, like a person would get a tree surgeon in or whatever, and they would come to city council and
Right.
say, this is not a diseased tree, it's just an old tree.
Right, you get a hearing, and you get to present evidence, you can have a lawyer there if you want, you can present evidence to the council about why you think the marking was incorrect and why you don't want to turn, knock this down and why you shouldn't have to, and then the council makes a decision after that. Yep,
Thank you.
yep.
Any more discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Ordinance?
Ordinance, call roll.
Van Rissingham,
Yes.
Flinker,
Yes.
Crowder,
Yes.
Boyum,
Yes.
Antler,
Yes.
Doucette,
Yes.
Zilka,
Yes,
carried.
Carried. Now we'll go to new business. Heritage Preservation Commission recommendation, facade easement.
The Like New Gun and Pawn Shop is renovating and redoing the roof of their building, and so they made a proposal or a request of the Heritage Preservation Commission to use for funding to redo the roof. The HPC is recommending that we use federal funds for a part of this project. The total project cost is $27,000. There is $18,800 in the federal funding in that fund or in that grant, and so the HPC is recommending that we fund $18,800 of the project using the federal funds.
What's the wish of the council?
Mr. President, I so move.
Second.
Got a motion by Alderman Crowder, second by Councilman Hafler, for the facade easement for deferred loan grant for $18,800. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. State Preservation Conference funding.
You may remember that the City of Little Falls will be hosting the State Preservation Conference in September of 2015. As a part of the conference, which is put on by the Minnesota Historical Society, we did receive some grant. We were awarded some grants to help pay for part of the cost of hosting this event. We believe that there is about a $3,200 match that the city will need to come up with to host the event. The HPC is requesting that the money come out of the city-held tourism funds, as this will bring a lot of people into town, feeding them hotels, motels, lodging, tourism. So they do believe that this is a good expense out of those tourism dollars. So they're asking for up to $3,200 as part of the matching funds for the State Preservation Conference for next September.
What's the wish of the council?
Mr. President, so move.
Second.
Got a motion by Councilman Hanford, second by Alderman Crowder, for the State Preservation Commission funding of up to $3,200. Any more discussion?
And that would be $3,200 or?
Up to $3,200.
Not to exceed.
Not to exceed. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Petition, Bituminous Curb and Gutter, 5th Street Northwest.
We received a petition for blacktop curb and gutter between, on 5th Street Northwest between 5th and 6th Avenue. Staff recommends receiving the petition, verifying the names on the petition, and moving forward from there.
Do we need a motion to do that? Lori?
Motion to receive, yes.
Motion to receive it?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Got a motion by Alderman Crowder, second by Councilwoman Doucette, to receive the petition for the 5th Street Northwest. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Carried. Petition for streetlights.
We received another petition this evening. This one is for streetlights, to take a look at the streetlights on 3rd Street Northeast. Again, staff is recommending that we receive this, verify signatures on this particular petition, and then we'll bring it back to the council after that.
What's the wish of the council?
I move that we receive it.
Second.
Motion by Mayor Van Riesinger, second by Councilwoman Doucette to receive the petition for streetlights. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Resolution 2014-62, local assistant fire protection. Fire chief had mentioned that to us at the work session.
As you discussed in the work session, this resolution would allow for emergency vehicles and possibly street equipment to be basically a joint powers type of thing to go be dispatched to other communities and other entities in cases of an emergency. So this resolution would allow that.
What's the wish of the council?
Mr. President, I so move for adoption of resolution 2014-62, local assistance.
Second.
A motion by Councilman Haffner, second by Councilwoman Doucette for resolution 2014-62. Roll call, please.
Poinker,
Yes.
Crowder,
Yes.
Boyum,
Yes.
Antler,
Yes.
Doucette,
Yes.
Zilka,
Yes.
Van Ryssingham.
Yes.
Carries.
Carries. Item E, add in the visitor guide.
So the Convention and Visitors Bureau is requesting again that the city place basically a business card size ad in the 2015 Visitors Guide. The cost is $260. The city council agreed to do that last year with the funding coming out of the tourism fund. And then also one for the golf course, a separate one for the golf course. Again, it would be a business card size ad at $260 with the payment coming out of the golf course fund.
What's the wish of the council?
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion by Councilman Zilka, second by Mayor Van Riesinger for the ad that was put in, we're gonna put in the visitor's guide. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Community gardens.
We talked a little bit about this at the work session this evening. Live Better, Live Longer would like to construct a community garden at Gamrock Park. Tonight they're asking for a right of entry to get started on the tilling and soil preparation of the garden area while staff work with them and the city attorney to get the agreement pulled together. So tonight we are looking for a motion to allow Live Better, Live Longer to start preparations for the community garden and allow staff to work with Tony and Live Better, Live Longer on the agreement.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Councilman Zilka, second by Mayor Van Riesinger for community gardens to get started. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Any councilman got any reports? Hearing none, we got a announcement for the planning commission. Public hearing is October 13th, 2014 at 6:30. It's a conditional use permit for wood shaving, drying business, and heavy industrial I-2 lease. So that'll be on Monday if anybody's interested in that. Other than that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
We are, all in favor of the adjournment, say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you for attending.